Okay, it is 6:03, and we'll get started here. And if people join, we'll have them join with us. So I want to thank everyone for coming today to learn more about the Unified Housing Strategy and provide feedback. And we can't wait to hear what you all think of the Unified Housing Strategy as we continue to move towards implementation. But before we get into the presentation, I'd like to have my colleagues here introduce themselves. I'll, I'll let Emma start off, and then when it comes back to me, we'll get back into the presentation.
Hi, I'm Emma. I really don't know what else to say actually. Um, Travis, what should I say?
You're a planning department worker here with us, and we're so happy to have you to join us and help us out with this.
Yes, of course, happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Daryl Hill. I'm the Housing Response Coordinator for the Housing Division.
Perfect. Yeah. And so I'm Travis Miller. I'm the Housing Policy and Programs Coordinator here for the Metro Nashville Housing Division. And once again, want to thank you all for coming to today's presentation, and we'll get started here. So to kick things off, I do want to go over a few presentation protocol rules here. We just ask that all questions and discussion be for the end of the presentation. We have feedback questions, and we're happy to answer questions as well. And we, as always, ask that everyone is respectful of others and allow everyone an opportunity to speak. And we look forward to your constructive feedback. Speaking of feedback, I wanted to start the presentation showing a few of the feedback questions that are on the public feedback form that can be found on our website at nashville.gov/UHS. But we'll also talk through these after the presentation. Wanted to give you a heads up of maybe what to be thinking about as we go through here. Okay, so today we'll start with a overview of the Unified Housing Strategy, talk about what is affordable and what is affordable when the Housing Division is referring to affordable housing. And then we'll really kick into the content of the Unified Housing Strategy, looking at our key findings, looking at how much housing we need, and then looking into an overview of the UHS strategies and actions, and then talk about some moving forward through implementation, and then have an opportunity for feedback again at the end there. So to start with an overview of the UHS, the Unified Housing Strategy is a shared call to action and a call to collective ownership. Metro government cannot do this all alone, and furthering these strategies and actions will require constant collaboration from all of our key partners on the public, private, philanthropic, and nonprofit sectors. The Unified Housing Strategy will allow us to align our systems and resources to create new, preserve existing affordable housing, keep people in their homes, connect them to resources, and this Unified Housing Strategy is designed to be a living document that can respond to market conditions and the needs of Nashville as we go through the decade. This was a collaborative effort. The UHS was built with support from both Metro partners and external partners and would not be possible without all of the partners who gave their time and energy to this process. And we want to extend a special thank you to all of our UHS community ambassadors who hosted community listening sessions throughout the summer of 2024 and have been with us through this process. So thank you so much for your contributions. So the development of the Unified Housing Strategy started with a rigorous look at our housing market and housing data with in a review of our existing programs and our housing ecosystem, as well as best practices throughout the nation. Building off of that data and analysis, the bulk of the Unified Housing Strategy comes from our public input. where over the summer we spent a lot of time listening to the community by hosting multiple listening sessions, engaging with residents across neighborhoods, and connecting with people with a wide range of housing experiences. We heard from renters, homeowners, people facing housing instability, service providers, and everyone else in the housing ecosystem. And what we heard really shaped the unified housing strategy as it was built with those voices at the center. And today we're excited to share this strategy with you and hear your thoughts, as this is a chance to check, does the strategy reflect what you and your neighbors shared with us? The unified housing strategy is composed of four core components: an executive summary, the unified housing strategy itself, a 10-year implementation plan, and then the annual policies and priorities. So the executive summary is a standalone document that provides an overview of the UHS and gives you the high-level information in a more digestible format. And then there's the unified housing strategy that is the comprehensive look at the UHS, with content including an overview of the development process, our key findings from community engagement and data analysis, an ecosystem, resource, and regulatory analysis, our updated housing demand, and finally, those strategies and actions. Meant to accompany the UHS is our 10-year implementation plan. This plan guides the implementation of the strategy by outlining the resources and partners needed and our expected timelines when actions can be completed. And finally, the annual policy priorities. This is a document that will be published at the beginning of each new fiscal year upon approval of the budget to focus the UHS goals for that upcoming fiscal year and help guide us for the year to come. So there are a few housing studies and plans going on right now outside of the Unified Housing Strategy. You may have heard of the Housing and Infrastructure Study, and this study is really looking at land use and zoning and its interactions with our infrastructure and ability to have the infrastructure needed for housing. And then we have the Unified Housing Strategy, which looks at the tools and policies to address our affordability challenges and gives us our estimated demand for housing in the next 10 years. And then finally, MDHA, or the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency, is also doing their annual action plan update. And this focuses on looking at proposed uses for federal funds, such as the Community Development Block Grant and the Home Program for the upcoming year. And then before we can start talking about the Unified Housing Strategy, we do want to remind everyone of existing state legislative restrictions that do limit what Metro can do in terms of affordable housing. And so we are not allowed to institute rent control where rents are set at a price and can't go higher than that. That is something that we are unable to set as the city, but we're also unable to interact with private sales of property or utilize affordability in zoning requirements. And then finally, we are unable to enact stricter tenant protections outside of what is set at the state level. There are more flexibility that we have. There's more flexibility that we have with our public funded affordable housing, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the UHS in Action 35, but that is a restriction as well. So then what is affordable? There are a variety of definitions set at the federal, state, and local level when you're talking about affordable housing. But when the housing division refers to affordable housing, we mean housing that is restricted to households earning at or below 80% of the area median income, or AMI. The area median income is calculated annually by HUD, and this income measurement is used to set affordability requirements for federal, state, and local affordable housing programs. It's important to note that the area median income for Nashville does include a 10-county census that includes surrounding counties such as Rutherford, Williamson, and Wilson counties. Now, what is the area median income for Nashville, Davidson County. In 2024, the area median income, or 100% AMI, for Metro Nashville was $74,850 for a single household and $106,900 for a four-person household. When we look at that 80% AMI level, that comes out to $59,850 for a single person household and $85,500 for a four-person household. So when we're looking at affordable housing, we're looking at that 80% AMI and below threshold. The Housing Division receives this data from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, on an annual basis and publishes it on our webpage at nashville.gov and the Affordable Housing Dashboard. We've recently received all of the data for 2025 AMI levels, and the Housing Division will post those in June. Now that we know the area median income, it is really important to talk about who needs affordable housing. So we'll start on the right side of this graphic with our family social worker, who earns on average $57,000 a year, which is roughly around that 80% of the area median income or a little bit low. And affordable housing for them would be $1,425 a month for their housing costs. For our hairstylists, who earn on average $43,000 a year, or less than 60% of the area median income, their affordable housing costs would be around $1,075 a month. And an employee working full-time, 40 hours, earning minimum wage, earns on average $22,000 a year, which is below that 30% AMI, which requires housing costs to be affordable at $550 a month. So these are the people that are working in our neighborhoods and our cities who need affordable housing options. And now that we've set the stage, we will talk about the real content of the Unified Housing Strategy, and by kicking it off with our key findings. And so our key findings include major themes from both the community engagement and data analysis. And those key themes are an increased housing demand, lack of affordability, lack of housing choice, an inaccessibility of home ownership, the risk of housing loss, and the difficulty navigating programs and resources. So we'll go in a little bit more depth on those themes on the following slides here. To kick things off on an increased housing demand, there are two elements that we'll need to talk about, which is demand and supply. So the drivers of demand in Nashville, we're an exciting place to live. Nashville's production and job growth has exceeded our Nashville Next expectations due to a strong economy and the plentiful job opportunities here in Nashville, Davidson County. As in addition to the demand of people moving into Nashville, we're also seeing a change in the number of households and the size of households, which also has an impact on the demand or those looking for housing. And this plays with supply, as we've seen an overall drop in housing production following 2008, which has really constrained the housing supply across all income levels, but especially for housing affordable to those earning at or below 60% of the area median income. And we did want to note a few factors that do have an impact on housing affordability that we are not seeing in our data as primary drivers of market trends, but are important to bring up as they do have localized impacts. And that is short-term rental properties and large investor purchases. This graphic shows the supply of rentals affordable by income level. And you'll see that housing production has been robust, but hasn't kept up with demand. And new construction is largely constrained to the most costly kinds of housing to build, where the units affordable to those earning 80% or below of the area median income are priced out of those options. And we can see here also a decline in the supply for affordable housing in that 30 to 60% of the area median income band, and an increase in the supply of rentals affordable to those earning 60 to 80% of the area median income. And that suggests that those units have become more expensive or been priced up out of that 30 to 60 band. Building off of that, there is a lack of affordability as well. And so this was a primary concern across all stakeholders, with rental and homeownership costs increasingly out of reach for our low and moderate income residents, leading many to face difficult trade-offs and tough choices between their housing costs and other essentials like food and healthcare. And as we see, housing costs for both rent and home ownership have grown faster than the median household incomes over the past 5 years, making affordability even worse. Related to affordability is cost burden. And so a household is considered cost burden if they're spending more than 30% of their gross monthly income on their housing costs. And we see that both renters and homeowners face cost burden. However, we do see renters being more cost burden at higher rates than owners. There are also a few intersectionality um, elements to talk about with cost burden, where 74% of single parent renters are cost burden, and a cost burden is affecting our communities of color at higher rates than our white communities in Nashville. And Hispanic homeowners experience a higher cost burden at 29% than our Black and white homeowners at 22% and 21% respectively. And there's also a an element for older adults caring for young children where they face a unique challenge in this aspect, where residents who are on a fixed income, such as Social Security, are caring for children where their Social Security is not enough to cover for both her needs and the child's as well. And so having affordable housing is necessary to support those households. And related to a lack of housing affordability is a lack of housing choice. And so I'd like to start with this piece off with a quote from on one of our listening sessions. I would like to continue to live in Nashville, but the cost of housing and other necessities has me considering moving to another county, which would increase my commute time and gas expenses. And that's what we refer to as driving until you qualify. And is just another example of making those difficult trade-offs of where to live versus your commute time and the amount of money that you'll spend on your gas for that commute as well. But housing affordability limits the housing choice or what people can look for when they're looking for their housing options. During our listening sessions, most participants could only name affordability as their primary need. And this highlights that many are so focused on securing affordable housing that they're forced to overlook other important factors such as location, access to schools, jobs, or transportation. And there are also challenges for vulnerable populations. At another community listening session hosted by Stand Up, Stand Up Nashville, it was shared that formerly incarcerated individuals have a difficult time finding housing, even years after a nonviolent offense, where landlords automatically reject applicants that have a criminal record during the screening, forcing individuals to settle for housing with safety and or quality issues due to a constrained lack of choice. And related to being forced to settle for housing with safety and quality issues, Residents in substandard conditions report difficulty getting landlords to address such issues, and some even feared retaliation, like being forced to leave their affordable home if they made complaints. There are also impacts on our uh, uh, disabled Nashvillians, where at a listening session, a woman shared her frustration finding accessible housing near a bus line as she is a wheelchair user. And despite searching for hours each week, she could not find a suitable option that would meet her accessibility needs. There's also a misalignment of our housing production type and our community needs. As you can see in this figure, there is a lack of housing for households with 4 or more people that match their need of 3 or more bedrooms, specifically for those earning less than 60% of the area median income. And there's also geographic disparities in our housing availability. Much of Nashville is naturally occurring affordable housing, which is housing that is affordable without any public subsidy or income restriction, but is affordable due to other factors such as location or age. Those units are focused outside of the urban core in areas such as Antioch, Madison, and Donaldson, where our income restricted housing is clustered in areas outside of the urban core as well, with high concentrations in the northern and southern parts of the city. And now we've talked about a lack of affordability and a lack of housing choice across both renters and homeowners, but we really did see an inaccessibility of home ownership or even getting into becoming a homeowner. Many potential first-time buyers are being priced out of the market despite a strong desire to settle and build families in Nashville. Some are considering moving elsewhere for more affordable options. Think back to the quote that I had shared earlier in driving until you qualify. Home ownership costs have risen sharply, making it increasingly difficult for many to purchase homes. And 91% of our new homes are single family homes, which again are more expensive to build, thus being out of reach for many buyers. There's also a unique issue or challenge that older adult homeowners face where they feel stuck in their homes. We have heard that many adult homeowners want to downsize to more accessible homes, but are unable to due to high relocation costs and current housing prices. So that also comes in with the lack of housing choice as well. When looking at home ownership, it is also important to look at the uh, uh, rates of home ownership across all Nashvillians. And we see that for home values in Davidson County, they have risen 40% since 2019, while incomes have only grown by 19%. And the average home value is $421,000 which exceeds the affordable home value for the median household, which is around $330,000. And that creates roughly a $90,000 dollar affordability gap just for our median households. And speaking of housing choice, as of May 2024, only 350 homes were listed for sale that were affordable to the median household in Davidson County. There are also disparities in home ownership access. If we look at home ownership rates across race and ethnicity, we see much higher rates of home ownership for our Asian Pacific Islander and white households here in Nashville, as well as increased median home values as well. Even after controlling for income, white borrowers have a 72% mortgage origination rate compared to just 56% for Black borrowers. And related to being able to get into housing, there's also the fear or risk of losing your housing as well. Both homeowners and renters are increasingly worried about losing their homes due to rising rental costs or rising property values in the surrounding neighborhoods. As you can see in these maps that come from a market value analysis done by the Reinvestment Fund for Nashville and Davidson County, we can see areas with the highest displacement pressure and the highest displacement risk ratios. And we can see that in northern Nashville, in the northern part of the county, we see high pressure for displacement, as well as in that southeastern part of Nashville and into parts of the county as well. But outside of pressured housing loss, there is forced housing loss as well, such as evictions. We've seen that eviction filings have increased by 45% compared to our pre-pandemic levels, with the highest rate recorded in February of 2024 at 1,478 filings. Even if tenants win in an eviction case, eviction judgments can still create long-term barriers to securing future housing. And there is a urgent need for eviction prevention, as our current eviction data doesn't specify the reasons for filings, but it does underscore the pressing need for prevention strategies and interventions. And then finally, there's a difficulty navigating programs and resources. We heard that programs are difficult to navigate as there's not a single place where residents can go to find the resources they need. And this was shared by both residents and service providers, and they say that it was time consuming and often frustrating to try to find the programs and resources out there. There's also a limited awareness of available resources, as many residents are unaware of housing security programs such as emergency rental assistance, our property tax freeze and relief programs, and the eviction right to counsel program. And we've seen that residents who are aware of these resources often learn through their personal networks and not through a centralized support service that they can share and access. So those were the key themes from our key findings. And now we can talk about how much housing we need in the next 10 years. So HRNA Advisors estimates that Nashville will need over 90,000 new homes in the next 10 years, which comes out to around 9,000 new units annually. This does include both market rate and affordable housing, and this demand estimate is higher than our housing growth since 2015, but is lower than the spike in construction that we saw since the pandemic. HRNA Advisors also shared that there may be a demand for over half of these new homes to be for sale as opposed to rental, as the availability of homes for sale in Nashville has been well below what is considered a healthy supply since 2008. Nashville has made substantial gains in rental supply due to our dense construction in downtown and midtown, but we do have to work on our for sale properties as well. We find that the biggest gap is for households earning 30% of the area median income or below. And it is estimated that we will need roughly 20,000 homes affordable to those earning at or below 60% of the area median income, with a priority for those earning less than or equal to 30% of the area median income. And again, 30 to 60% of the AMI is $22,450 for a single person at 30%, and $44,940 for a single person at 60%, and $32,000 for a person at 30% or four-person family at 30% AMI, and $64,140 for a family of four. This analysis took into account different income levels and household types to inform the scale, type, and tenure of affordable housing needs over the next decade. This large gap for those earning less than 30% of the area median income has a ripple effect where households in the that need housing affordable to them at that 30% of the area median income are forced to rent homes that are priced higher, for those potentially in the 30 to 60% area median income band, thus taking the supply that would be affordable to them and compounding the problem as we go. And so that is why it's important that we have the supply necessary for those earning at or below 60% of the area median income. And so now we can kick into our strategies and actions the housing division and Metro in general will be implementing in these next 10 years to address our affordability needs and housing needs in general. So it's important to start by talking that housing is a continuum, and a housing ecosystem is composed of key actors working across this continuum. And a strong housing ecosystem has the resources and tools necessary to play their part and serve Nashvillians throughout their housing experience. This includes Metro, but the success of our housing continuum requires private, nonprofit, and philanthropic support to provide the supply of affordable and market rate housing, and to provide supportive services, resources for both renters and owners, such as case management or home repair programs, as well as rental assistance programs as well. So in order to do all of this, all partners need to have a unified strategy to collaborate on. And again, I wanted to just highlight who needs affordable housing. These are our the people making our city and neighborhoods run. And so we need to have strategies and actions that align our ecosystem and resources to, again, create new and preserve existing affordable housing, prevent displacement by keeping people in their homes, and connecting people to resources. But these seven major strategies that we'll go through need an ecosystem that is prepared to implement. So we'll kick off with strategy A, which is to enhance and align Nashville's housing ecosystem to comprehensively and collectively address Nashville's housing needs. So this will focus on creating a high-functioning ecosystem that is needed to more effectively address our housing needs. Key actions with this strategy include creating a position in the mayor's office that will provide executive-level coordination, increasing our interagency collaboration and accountability, expanding the city's capacity to lead and implement housing initiatives, enhancing support for development partners, including our small and emerging developers. This will help serve all current and future Nashvillians that will seek stable and affordable housing. And this matters because it'll address our ongoing fragmentation of Metro's housing efforts, and it'll create a more organized and responsive and innovative system to meet our housing needs. Strategy B, optimize and grow financial and resource support for affordable housing across public, private, and philanthropic sectors. This strategy will focus on expanding and diversifying funding and other resources to support affordable housing initiatives. So the key actions of this strategy include maximizing the use of existing tools, such as the Barnes Fund, building stronger partnerships with the philanthropic and corporate sectors, establishing underwriting capacity, building and supporting partnerships with institutional landholders, such as faith-based institutions, and exploring new and sustainable funding sources for affordable housing and homelessness services. This will serve Nashvillians in need of affordable housing, particularly those earning 60% of the area median income or below. And this matters because our rising housing costs require optimization of existing programs, and federal, state, and local funds alone are not sufficient. This strengthens our ability to deliver more housing for low and moderate income residents. Strategy C, creating a range of new and affordable housing choices for all Nashvillians as appropriate across the county. This will focus on increasing our housing supply with a strong emphasis on expanding our affordable rental options for low to moderate income residents. Key actions in this strategy include evaluating and adjusting zoning and land use policies to boost housing production, developing a mixed income housing finance toolkit, leveraging publicly owned land for affordable and mixed income housing, prioritizing deeply affordable housing and existing housing programs, and prioritizing new income restricted housing for vulnerable residents, such as families with children, older adults, individuals with disabilities, and our justice impacted individuals. So this will serve all Nashvillians, again, with a focus on those earning low to moderate incomes with vulnerable populations in need of deeply affordable rental housing. And the demand for housing continues to exceed supply, causing rising prices and reduced affordability. And a lack of affordable housing forces residents to choose, again, between their basic needs. And a healthy housing market must also match home prices to local wages. Strategy D, keep homeowners in their homes and create more opportunities for sustainable home ownership and wealth creation. This will focus on expanding access to affordable home ownership and supporting existing homeowners to promote stability and generational wealth. Key actions for this strategy include leveraging our land use policies to support the construction of homeownership units, directing public funds towards households with the greatest barriers to home ownership, expanding and strengthening our programs that assist current homeowners with maintenance and affordability, and this will serve populations historically facing systemic barriers to home ownership, with low and moderate income households being priced out of homeownership opportunities. And current homeowners will also be served, especially our older adults and those with limited incomes struggling with home maintenance and housing costs. This matters because home ownership remains the critical path to wealth building, and home ownership is increasingly unaffordable for households earning $100,000 a year. And we see our home ownership rates for Black and Hispanic families being significantly lower than white families. Supporting existing homeowners also helps prevent displacement, especially amongst our older adults and vulnerable populations. Excuse me. Strategy E, create permanent housing options for persons experiencing or at risk of homelessness. This will focus on creating and prioritizing permanent housing options for individuals and families transitioning out of homelessness, with key actions including advancing the Homelessness Planning Council's strategic plan, prioritizing vouchers for those transitioning out of or at risk of homelessness, exploring funding sources for rental assistance and supportive services, developing a specific strategic plan to create more permanent supportive housing for those with complex needs. And this will serve individuals and families currently experiencing homelessness with a focus on those at risk of experiencing chronic homelessness. And this matters because people experiencing homelessness have urgent housing needs that require a focused approach, and homelessness inflow outpaces exits at a rate of 3-to-1. Finally, permanent supportive housing is a proven solution to supporting individuals experiencing chronic homelessness with complex needs, and a dedicated permanent supportive housing strategy will help guide collaboration and investments across sectors. I do want to give a shout out to the Strobel House, which has recently opened through the support of Metro to provide permanent supportive housing for residents. Going on to strategy F, which is to preserve and protect long-term housing affordability and stability. This will focus on ensuring that Nashville's current and future housing stock is affordable to Nashvillians and remains affordable for years to come, with key actions including prioritizing projects that provide long-term or perpetual affordability, such as community land trusts, social housing, long-term ground leases, implementing policies that promote long-term affordability of both new and existing income-restricted housing, utilizing the Catalyst Fund to support housing preservation efforts, maintaining and monitoring a county-wide database of deed-restricted affordable properties, and this will serve households living in or reliant on income-restricted or naturally occurring affordable housing. And this matters because preserving existing affordable housing is often more cost-effective than building new housing. And many income restricted properties risk becoming unaffordable when their restrictions expire. And protecting our existing housing stock ensures the continued stability for the current residents. And then the final strategy, strategy G, strengthen housing security for renters and improve access to resources for all Nashvillians. This will focus on improving access to housing information and legal protections to help residents stay housed and navigate housing challenges more effectively. Key actions include strengthening tenant protections in publicly subsidized housing, supporting the eviction right to counsel program, increasing awareness of fair housing and supporting fair housing efforts, improving access to housing resources for residents by strengthening and expanding Hub Nashville, expanding language access for housing programs and resources, and this serves Nashvillians facing housing challenges, including those at risk of evictions or struggling with affordability issues. And this matters because quick access to accurate information and support during a housing crisis can prevent harmful outcomes such as eviction or homelessness. And existing support programs are helpful, but many residents are unaware of them or struggle to access them. And rising housing costs are making it harder for many Nashvillians to remain stably housed, and they need access to resources and protections to help them. So I know that was a lot. I do want to refer people to the 10-year implementation plan that can be found on nashville.gov/UHS, which goes again into more detail on the resources, partners, and timeline for all of the actions, not just those key actions that we shared earlier, for more information on the strategies and actions. But moving forward together towards implementation, implementing this strategy requires our collective ownership and actions to address Nashville's housing challenges in collaboration among all of us. Our long-term success relies on multiple partners stepping up, strengthening coordination amongst both our public and private sectors, and support from our philanthropic and private sectors. We also need access to reliable housing data and expanded expertise across departments with increased capacity as well for our private partners. And this is a living strategy that is meant to respond to market conditions and the needs of Metro through these 10 years. As the priorities of today may not be the priorities of tomorrow, and growing uncertainty around federal funding and the state of the economy demand adaptable solutions. So Metro will prepare annual policy priorities to guide Metro's focus on the UHS goals for each new fiscal year. And these priorities will be based on progress on strategies, performance metrics, ongoing public engagement, and shifts in the economy, funding, and policy. And now that we've shared about the Unified Housing Strategy, we'd like to share ways to provide feedback on the UHS. So there are a couple of ways to provide feedback, one of which you are participating in already, which is by joining a public presentation. We have one today, as you know, but we also presented to the Planning Commission last week, which a recording of this presentation can be found on Metro Nashville Network's YouTube page. But we also have two more public presentations coming up. One next week, Wednesday, May 21st, from 12 to 1:30, as well as a in-person presentation to the Housing Trust Fund on Tuesday, May 27th, from 2 to 4 p.m. If you share this information with your friends and family and they're not able to join one of these public presentations, but they do have questions about the Unified Housing Strategy or would like to provide feedback, there is also office hours that the Housing Division are hosting. And these office hours can be found as well on our website, where you can book time, a 30-minute meeting with staff here in the Housing Division to share your thoughts on the Unified Housing Strategy, ask questions, or go in more depth automatically on our website. And if you have any other questions, you can always reach out to us at unifiedhousingstrategy@nashville.gov. Finally, we do ask that you complete a feedback form once you have had a chance to review the UHS documents. We do ask that you tell us what you think. Did we do it right? Are we missing anything? Or do you hear yourself in this strategy? So you can find that feedback form again on nashville.gov/UHS or by scanning the QR code here on the slide. So the feedback form is open until May 30th, 2025. And if you have any questions or have any trouble accessing this feedback form, again, please reach out to us at unifiedhousingstrategy@nashville.gov. And so finally, we do have our feedback questions that we would love to start the conversation off with these questions and hear your feedback on the unified housing strategy. So I think, Daryl, if you see any questions that pop up in the chat, we can address those, but also if you would like to raise your hand, we can ask you to unmute and ask your question or provide your feedback as well.
We had several questions, but they seem to come from Unified Housing Strategy. So if we can unmute him and her and have them ask a question or two.
Johnson. I go by Jamie. The first thing that's on the docket, there's 200,000 individuals that work in and around Nashville that can't afford housing. What's the strategy in order for them to have affordable housing? The second one being, MDHA has slated payments anywhere from $2,000 for a 0 to 1 bedroom to $2,200 to $2,300. The whole point is they are. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
The whole point is they are put on hold by Housing and Urban Development for open, honest testimony and a public apology from the powers that be in order to release these funds for voucher programs and to subsidize the housing for those that are at any of the forms of AMI, regardless of the situation. So there's a statement, but the question is, what do you do about 200,000 workers building the city that can't afford the housing?
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. And the unified housing strategy, through the strategies and actions, are meant to create a housing ecosystem that is ready to build the housing for our residents in Nashville, Davidson County, and give them the tools that they need to provide that housing throughout all of the strategies and actions in the UHS. That is our goal, is to provide the housing for all Nashvillians across the any AMI band, but specifically those who are building and making our city run through the strategies and actions. And that comes through funding for housing development, that comes through funding for supportive services, and as well as streamlining the production of housing in Nashville to allow us to build our the units that we need. Are there any other questions that are popping in, or any hands that are raised?
Daryl, it looks like another question came through in the chat from Wendy Allen, if you want to read that.
It says, is there a plan to ensure that no area of Nashville is overloaded or disproportionately adversely impacted with affordable housing development plans?
Yes, and so that comes through our monitoring and maintaining our database of affordable housing, so we can see throughout the county where affordable housing currently is and be able to use that information to know if there is affordable housing being clustered in one area of the city versus another area, and monitoring the different ways to incentivize affordable housing throughout the city or county as well, I should say. And then I will also say that these feedback questions are the same questions that are on the feedback form that is found on our website. So if you do want to provide feedback in that avenue as well, we welcome and support and hope you provide your feedback for us so we can hear what we need to do and if we did it right.
And I don't see any more questions in the chat, nor do I see any hands raised. So if there's anyone who has a question, please let us know. We can unmute you, and then you can ask your question. Unified Housing Strategy has a question. Can we unmute him, please?
So with that being said, there's at least 6,600 units available. At least that's a minimum when it comes down to it. The question that I had, thanks for bringing that to my remembrance. What strategy do they go by? Are they making these people who are building show financial statements proving that they have the money to build, absent of the assumption that the finances are going to be available either now or in the future, and using them as securities to continue to build? Or is it something we're just flying by the seat of our pants kind of and letting whoever do whatever?
We take into account when we're looking at the different projects that we fund here in the housing division. We do look at the entire capital stack or the funding for these projects and take a look at the holistic look at the of the application and the feasibility and readiness for that project to be built. And I'll also go back to one of the strategies or one of the actions of the UHS is to really build our underwriting capacity, which will look at the gaps in funding for different projects and be able to help us optimize our funding so that we are able to provide funding to projects that can come to fruition, and we're able to make the most of our public investment.
I do not see any more hands. So the floor is open if you'd like to ask a question.
Wendy Allen has her hand raised. I'm going to unmute her.
Thank you so much.
The question in the chat as well, but I'm wondering how you're proactively notifying communities about the surveys and the meetings and the action plans, because I accidentally found this meeting when I was looking for something else. Is there a social media site where we can follow? Or I saw 431 survey results. That seems very low for a city. I mean, maybe it's not, but it seems low to me for a city our size for survey responses. So interested in that, please.
Yes, so the opportunities for engagement for this piece of the releasing of the UHS and this feedback period, we released a press release with the different virtual and in-person presentation dates, as well as sharing information to our contact lists who have signed up for updates, which I'll do another plug for the housing division. If you do want to sign up for updates on the unified housing strategy, funding opportunities, that you can sign up for updates on our website at the housing division webpage on nashville.gov. But those were two ways that we go that we've gone through sending out this information. But we have also have a social media that is posting the upcoming presentations and upcoming feedback opportunities, I believe on both Instagram and X, potentially just X though. But we do also ask if you can share this information with your friends and family. We would love to get that information out as well. And then I'll also add, I'll call back to our unified housing strategy or UHS community ambassadors. We also work with them to get our information out to different community groups throughout Nashville as well.
Hey, Travis, there is a question in the chat, and it says, will each presentation you've scheduled be similar to this one?
Yes, so each presentation will be similar to the one that we just went through today, as also an opportunity to provide feedback and the content.
And unified housing strategy, did you have your hands up again? If so, can we unmute him, please?
I genuinely did not.
Okay.
I think it was just still up from the thing. The only thing I'll make a statement. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
I've worked ad nauseum scouring the documents that have to do with HMIS, policies and procedures manual for homeless planning council and the continuum of care of Nashville. If you look through these things above and beyond that, the $50 million budget that was there, saving those that were found worthy in carrying out the mission, which they have done. UHS, not this UHS, but a different UHS, happened to do some things that were less than desirable. They said that they had 130 something units available. And what they ended up doing is they had about 100 people that were getting vouchers. And then they tried strong arming the system into procuring 30 more vouchers to continue to build more quote unquote affordable housing units. So there is an undertone, and there's a portion of this that goes on above and beyond that what happened inside and around the city that needs to be answered for open and honestly through public comment. They use the assumption that places were going to be zoned for multifamily use and started moving the ground, which is an egregious act, because if you start cracking land that you don't know anything about, some of these lands are sacred just by who lives there or things that have happened. And so what they did is they assumed that the money was going to be there. They assumed that the zoning was going to happen. And that's a portion of the thing that needs to be answered for. And there's been some individuals who are genuinely strong in like oversight committees and doing all of these things on the forefront of it, just hoping and praying that somebody was willing to step up and speak out. So there's a portion of that that's happening. Um, just so we're clear, the finances are there. There was a stop put to it, and then for the things that they stopped for the efficiency that was happening, I'm talking White House level, $268 million, $268 billion saved in the month of April by cutting programs that were unfruitful and inefficient for the American public. The taxpayer, not just here in Nashville, but all across the country, is a huge deal. So whenever it comes down to it, there's a lot more of these things that are on the horizon. Above and beyond that, there was a $1.2 trillion deal signed with Qatar that has to do with Boeing and making America have 20,000 plus jobs plus another 150,000 jobs over the next 10 years. And using our technology through Boeing, get planes for different kinds of things. So these are all portions of what's been happening. So whenever it comes down to it, that's the honesty and the openness of what's happening, not just here, not just in the whole entire country, but all around the world. So there's where it is.
Well, thank you for that, Jamie. Travis, I do not see any other hands.
Are there any other questions in the chat at all? Okay.
Yeah, there is one, Travis. What is the current rate of production of affordable rental units and affordable homes at less than 60% AMI?
Yes, so I do not know the exact number off the top of my head, but I will refer you to our affordable housing dashboard that has a that tracks our affordable housing production by fiscal year for the Barnes Fund through other Metro programs, but as well as through the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program and the LIHTC pilot program that will have the most up-to-date data on our unit production and units funded. I want to reference that as a good resource for this, but also to look at in the future as well to keep up to date with the unified housing strategy and our affordable housing production in general. I think I saw someone put that link in the chat, so thank you, whoever did that.
Do we have any other questions? Travis, I did not see any other questions in the chat, no raised hand. Ms. Johnson, do you see any?
I do not.
Okay, Travis.
Well, yeah, if there are no further questions or feedback that you'd like to share right now, I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your evening to come and learn about the Unified Housing Strategy, and keep an eye out for future engagements events as we move towards implementation, and keep a hand on the pulse of how our progress is, and the needs of our community. Again, I'm gonna ask to share this information and these events and these opportunities with your friends, family, colleagues, as well as that feedback form, so that we can hear your thoughts on the UHS and how we did with the Unified Housing Strategy. So again, thank you all for coming, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at Nashville, or at Unified Housing Strategy at nashville.gov.